Okay, I think we're going. So this is Amanda Flaker. Ooh,
Hi.
speak back a little so they can see your head.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hi.
And I'm in Utah visiting you and your awesomeness.
Yes.
Yes. We're prepping for
The Elven Retreat.
the Elven Bliss Out.
In Park City.
Yes, which we rescheduled for January. Oh, I updated that on the website, by the way.
Oh, good.
So you have the info.
Perfetto.
You see how we plan, which is not left-brainedy. We plan right-brainedy.
Yes, right-brained.
It's a word now, brainedy.
Brainedy.
So we were talking about crying and the way that many new agey, new thought, spiritually people do this crazy spiritual bypass thing and don't know the value in grieving and crying.
Exactly.
So what are your thoughts on that?
So what I was talking about with Charis is the fact that my mom died when I was 12, and my family sort of, I think I have a lot of siblings, and everyone was just sort of overwhelmed by the whole situation. So we didn't really know how to be there for each other, and no one really knew how to grieve, knew how to deal with it. And it wasn't until I was 23 when I finally went to a counselor.
Because 11 years.
Yeah.
11.
I was an emotional wreck, and I thought I was going for a whole different issue. And I got into counseling and realized that what I needed was to grieve my mother's death. And I cried every single session, hysterically, usually, just nonstop, for about a year. And it was the most cleansing, cathartic experience I had, because I finally was able to validate what I felt. There was something delicious about just crying as well, that it's releasing on so many levels and cleansing. And it was something incredibly healing about validating what you feel, because as you were talking about spiritually bypassing things, when you don't validate what you feel and you think, I'm supposed to feel this way, these are the acceptable feelings and these feelings aren't acceptable, so I'm only going to focus on the ones that are acceptable, and you miss out on a huge part of the human experience, but you also can potentially miss out on crucial aspects of healing.
Yeah, and so what about, so you as someone who's known lots of people as you've traveled and that kind of thing, when people do open up and cry in front of you, because most of the time when I work with people, because, you know, those of you who have readings with me, like half of my readings, usually stuff comes through about showing negative emotion and allowing other people to bond with you in that way. And so both you were saying that when you opened up and allowed your sad or angry emotions to come through, and when you see other people's, especially people who don't usually show it, and when they let it come through, it does this amazing thing to you just being in the presence of it.
Exactly.
So how would you describe that? Like for those people who are watching this and are like, but I can't, but I'm supposed to be the happy one.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so for sure, I talked about with Charis how for a long time I never showed my emotion in front of my friends. I would let them cry around me, which was always healing for me. I never felt like don't cry, or it has an amazing equalizing effect, I think, because you realize, oh, that person feels too. But I think also when you release, I've had many people tell me when I've really released and been vulnerable with them, they thank me. Thank you for being vulnerable. It helped them to understand their vulnerabilities. And I think it also has this sort of energetic healing effect on both people. Like it's cathartic for both people.
Yeah, you know, I think I've only learned to cry in front of people in like the last 6 months.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that before that what it was because in, for instance, grad school, I had all these really intense relationships with friends and even lovers in grad school, and not at the same time, one at a time. Just to specify.
Doesn't matter.
This is public domain info here. I'm just being, yeah, I guess it wouldn't if it
Who
hadn't.
cares? Whatever.
Yeah. But what I would find was I was supposed to be the happy one. And so if I ever would let my negative emotions out, my friends would get mad at me. And the energy would kind of be like, well, who are you to be the sad one? I'm supposed to be the one where you're comforting me. And who, well, actually what it was, who are you to be inconsolable? Who are you to not let me make you feel better, because you always make me feel better, so I'm angry. But the truth was, the reason I never cried in front of it was because if I ever let that out, because I wasn't very grounded and I didn't have that amount of stability in order to start to let the dark stuff out and not just go crazy with it and just never be able to rein it back in and get back to my center. Well, I couldn't do it in front of anyone because of that energy looping thing. So eventually I would have to retreat, but if that ever came out in front of anyone, I would not be able to be consoled. And so people would kind of say, well, you're not a good friend because you don't let me comfort you. And I would say, listen, if everything you're saying I've already thought of, so if anything that you would say would help me, I would love for it to. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And what I found now is that since I have learned to cry in front of people, and actually the thing that taught me was my divorce. Actually, because my ex-husband is a wonderful person, and we would talk about it, and I would be able to cry without getting stuck in the emotion and kind of let it wash through me, almost like a river, and not, when the tears came, not hold them back, so not do that clinchy thing, which, by the way, tears hold a bunch of neurotoxins, so if you don't cry them out, you poison your own brain, which is crazy.
That's really interesting. I've heard that.
And so not do the tighten thing and hold it back, and also not do the, oh, I'm so sad now, thing.
Right.
And then identify and get attached to the emotion.
Yes.
But just let it come through, and it felt wonderful at the time, actually. And, I'm sitting here talking to my husband about getting divorced, and, he cried a little too, and it was really beautiful interactions. And then the second time we spoke, which was more recently, and we decided yes, we're actually going to start doing the divorce papers and stuff, it happened again. And like I was telling Amanda, one of my guides came into my brain and said, well, into my head, I don't think he's actually in there, you know what I mean, and said, do you feel that softness that you feel right now? And do you feel that vulnerability and that authenticity? Because it was the kind of feeling where I wasn't even trying to fight it anymore, because it was sad, but it was also really beautiful, because I'm lucky enough to have a really good divorce, like the best type that you can even imagine. And he said, you're supposed to be that open all the time, my guide said. And I was sitting there and I'm crying, because I was just in this spot where I didn't care. I could have been in the middle of an airport. I would not have cared. I would just been crying and totally fine with anyone seeing me, and not needing anything from anyone, not needing anyone to come and console me or anything. And I could feel the difference. I could say, oh yeah, I do. I feel how my edges are all soft and not, this is my happy armor, and this is my happy persona. And I could feel that, but then my thought was, well, how do I keep that? So how do you think, what is your insight on, how do you keep that softness when you're not sad and when you're not flipping out? How can you still be so authentic and authentically happy and not mask?
Yeah, well, I think what was coming to me as you were talking is, first of all, women are taught in society, it's really interesting, I've mentioned this before, that we are too much and not enough. It's a contradicting message that we receive. So many women are really afraid to be vulnerable, because if you're vulnerable, you're too much. And if you take on the strong, I can do it, I can take care of myself sort of persona, then you're impervious, So I think that for women, it's really hard to find a balance between what's actually our power, which is our soft vulnerability. It's because it's so healing. And I don't mean that's our power as in being female as a sex, but the feminine energy.
Yeah. I consider that powerful. Being vulnerable is certainly powerful.
Exactly. Yeah. It's something healing, and it's very powerful. But I think there is a balance between strength. There is a strength in vulnerability. And I think when the syndrome of too much is when you lose control of it. And I think women that lose control in terms of feeling like they need other people to take care of them or rescue them or, be their emotional support is because they either have been taught their whole lives they can't let it out, and they finally do, and they feel inconsolable, or it's unreachable, or they do the opposite, and their whole lives they put up this guard, so they never ever let it out ever, and so they are impervious. They don't.
Yeah, that happened. I didn't cry for a year in grad school. And the same friend who got mad at me later when I did cry, the joke was, Charis, you have no soul. You have no soul. And we would laugh about it, but the thought, words hold power. And for a year, my very best friend, who, she didn't know any better. She's a lovely person, too. We still talk sometimes. But I got it repeated into my ear for a year that I had no soul because I couldn't cry. Because I had been through some rough stuff right before then. So, watch your words, guys.
Yeah, words are powerful.
So, yeah, I guess... What else?
I don't know.
I think we covered it.
Well, yeah, I think that finding a balance between allowing yourself to feel. I think the biggest point is that everything you feel matters, no matter what it is. And trying to pretend that you don't feel it, it doesn't make it go away. It just masks it, and it comes out in another form. So
it comes out in really twisty ways.
Yeah. And we have emotions for a reason. The entire reason that we have the ability to cry is because it is helpful when we have an overwhelming sensation within us. We cry. It's cathartic. And that emotion can be happiness, sadness, ambivalence, whatever. But like,
I would love to have a good ambivalent cry.
I know. Yes, that'd be interesting, but you never know.
Well, let's try that one. Let's make. What is a good ambivalent cry movie? We'll watch an ambivalent cry movie and just. Well, you know what I love is there's a word for it in transpersonal not psychotherapy, but psychology literature. It's like wonder, awe, tear, but it's essentially when you're so awed, like not OGD, but AWD. Well, we're that too. But when you're so awed that you cry, like tears of awe,
right.
And it's apparently this huge. Someone did a dissertation or something on it. It was this. It's always a breakthrough.
I've read some stuff about that. How that's why in many religions worshiping can be so healing and cathartic, because it's that awe sense of when you're really, I don't know if you've ever like listened to Christian music when you get really into it, like there's that
all types of spiritual music.
Yeah,
when I listen to like African hymnals and
exactly.
those like accordion harmonies that make your chakras do this crazy reaching up and down.
Yeah, you can have intense like overwhelming emotion that just elicits
really
tears or just elicits an emotional response. But the bottom line is I think emotions are important and they let them out. Let them out.
And feel free to share them with others. And as an experiment, go around for the next 24 hours and just be totally emotionally authentic, no matter what it is, and see what happens.
Let's do that the next few days that we're here.
Oh, fine. Completely. Wow, are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. Bring it.
Okay, I don't even know. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Okay.
So we'll see. And yeah, what you'll find is if probably people will like you better and be able to connect with you better. That's bar none what comes through.
Exactly.
Well, bar none? No, that's terrible use of the term bar none. It's always what comes through whenever people try.
Right, I got it.
But yeah, you know what I mean.
I got it.
But yeah, people are shocked by how easy they are to connect to. And say the worst things happen and people say you have no soul, and they, or then they'll say you do have a soul, but I don't like you anymore, which is essentially what happened to me. Then you can just say, oh, well, that was just a crazy day. I don't know what happened. But I doubt that will happen to you. I think people will probably like it better. So let us know what happens. We're very curious about that. Yeah, and stay tuned.
And we'll share what happened with us.
We will. We'll post lots more videos.
Yes.
Awesome.
And we'll definitely post more about the Elven Bliss out, because there's much to tell.
Yeah, we're going to go up in the mountains and talk to some elves and see what happens.
Yes.
I love the way that sounds.
We're going to talk to elves.
Hang out with the elves. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Go in peace, and we'll talk to you
Ciao.
tomorrow.